Hello, my name is Christopher Height. I would like to start a blog called CompostHeap.Earth. What I want to do on this blog is daily or weekly or at some kind of regular interval make these little recordings where I reflect on various things that I'm thinking about. Right now I just got back from jump starting my neighbor's Prius over there at the Heritage Park trailhead on the other side of Meadowbrook here in Blacksburg, Virginia. And now I'm going to put some kitchen scraps into the compost pile. So here I go. Now, I can never remember the right ratio, but it's something like more parts carbon than parts nitrogen, and kitchen scraps are mostly nitrogen, and like leaves and sticks and brush is mostly carbon. I think it might be 10 to 1, but 10 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen, but I could be off on that. I'll look it up, but that's somewhere that's buried in my memory banks. Is good compost has a ratio of 10 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. And a rough guide to that is leaves and brush and stuff is carbon, and kitchen scraps are mostly nitrogen, although I'm sure there's all kinds of carbon in kitchen scraps as well, but this is a rough thing. It was super fun this year. We had a bunch of volunteer butternut squash specifically, that came from the compost, and I think we're going to have even more this year because we've got a lot of those volunteers that have re-entered the compost. The way I like to integrate new kitchen scraps is I dig like a little nesty hole, and then I just take my compost bin, pour it in there. So I think about what I'd like to leave behind when I'm composting myself, and I think the thing that I would like to leave behind is a plot of land that has hardier soil on it when I leave it than when I found it. And that's my goal. Every year I feel like this little 1.6 acre parcel here in Blacksburg, I plant more fruit trees, I do a little bit more composting, I experiment with letting parts of it go back to the wild, and just preventing my house from turning into a pile of dust. But yeah, I think slowly but surely I'm meeting that goal of building up the soil little by little, year by year, and then both getting the rewards from that in terms of our garden, having lots of variety of crops, not really crops, tomatoes and squash and corn, apples, peaches, cucumbers not so much, not this year, but I'm going to keep trying with the cucumbers. But then there's all kinds of challenges, right? The challenges to growing your own food. I mean, I am nowhere near self-sufficient. We are not growing anywhere near enough food to feed ourselves, but it's nice to supplement a little bit of the diet of the family with the food that I'm growing myself, that we're growing ourselves, my wife Amanda and I. My sister-in-law Brenda sent me this really cool article that was talking about how the concentration of lead was observed to be higher in some of these urban gardens because, this particular one I think was in Canada somewhere, and the urban garden was planted right next to a really high traffic intersection, and so because of all the particulates in the atmosphere and exhaust and lead coming from like brake pad dust and stuff like that was actually accumulating in the vegetables. And so it's an argument to be, to keep farming, the major farming operations in kind of these pristine rural locations. And I mean, that is really interesting to think about. We're not a very urban environment here in Blacksburg, but downtown Blacksburg, the town of Blacksburg urbanizes a little bit more every year. So it's something to keep an eye on, and maybe work with the Virginia Tech Cooperative Extension to try to do some soil testing to see what kind of contaminants we might have in our soil. But my qualitative assessment is that our homegrown vegetables here are tasty, and so are the homegrown vegetables, or the locally grown vegetables from various farms like Riverstone out in Floyd, or right here over the hill. We've got Glade Road Growing. They have nice vegetables too. From a qualitative perspective, they're very tasty. Now, scientifically, do they have increased levels of XYZ contaminant compared to vegetables grown smack in the middle of a 300-acre farm field? I don't know, but that's an interesting question. All right, signing off. CompostHeap.Earth.